thank you everyone for being here. We're truly, truly excited. We have such great turnout today. And we're excited about releasing these dollars. So thanks you all for being here. We're going to get right to it. And please know that we, these are a lot of dollars that are going out into the community. We're very, very excited about this. We're doing this at a pretty fast pace for a hospital. We have other dollars that are going to go out. So bear with us, give us a little bit of grace. We're learning as we go along. But we are here to make sure that this process is transparent, that we are making it as easy as possible for people to apply for dollars and to ask questions moving forward. So we're going to do our best to make sure that these dollars really make the biggest impact in our communities moving forward. So thank you again for being here. So I'll give you briefly, just to get into it right now, what is determination of need? What are community health impact funds all about? For any of you that don't
Para
know,
cualquiera de ustedes que no sepa la razón de por qué estos dólares están subiendo es porque tenemos un nuevo edificio que está
Street in downtown Boston next to Mass General's campus. We are building a big building, the Susan Philip Reagan building, and that whenever we have a capital expenditure at a hospital, whether it's a new building or new machinery that we put in, we need to, as a state regulation, we need to be giving 5% back into the communities that we serve. And that right now is why we have these dollars moving forward. And I'll go through those dollars. Out of that 5% that we're giving back to the community, 25% goes to a statewide fund. And that is because most of the hospitals, as we know, are congregated in and around Boston, right? And in these areas. So this is a new regulation that came through, in order to make sure that some of these dollars support the rest of the state and the rest of the needs in the state, there is a fund that is being managed to go to other community health initiatives. I'll go through exactly the dollars and where they're going. We can go to the next slide. So that's just the background of why these funds are going out. As far as can we flip to the next slide?
I'm trying. It's not.
Oh, sorry. That's okay.
Hold on. Yeah.
That's okay. Part of the regulation for these dollars, whenever there is kind of a capital expenditure and we need to be releasing dollars into the community, we need to do a needs assessment. We need to find out what are the priorities and what are the strategies that the community wants us to be investing in. Luckily for us, given the magnitude of how much money needs to go out, we just finished a community health needs assessment process that is required of us every 3 years. That's of every hospital. We did this collaboratively with the Boston Collaborative, as well as the North Suffolk Public Health Collaborative, which is made up of many hospitals, community-based organizations. And we collected a lot of data in order to choose the priorities and the strategies that these funds are going to be allocated to. So we can go to the next slide. So that just shows kind of the background, just to give you a background of this process is really based on data and the data from many of you, and many of you probably in this forum have been part of this process with us. So thank you. I don't know if you can go to the next slide.
Yeah, I'm not sure why they're not advancing, but
that's okay. So what we found out from this process is that, the social determinants of health, kind of those upstream, housing, financial mobility, you can go back, financial economic mobility, what determines what's in our physical environment. That is really what people are prioritizing right now. And that's what influencing our health. And that is exactly what these dollars are intended to be allocated to, kind of those upstream root causes of health. We can go to the next.
Can we go to the slide before? Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, I thought the 62 was
No, we can go to the next. We can go to the next slide. Oh. So as far as the $62 million that is going to be allocated, you can see here, this is just a breakdown of funds. This is in all of our literature. This is on the website. We've put this out through newsletters. This is our 5% that's going back into the community is totaling of $93 million. You can see actually close to $94 million. There are funds that we retain for administrative fees. We have 8 years to be allocating these dollars. And so that is funds that we use internally for consultants, for outside consultants, and for internal staff to be able to manage this process. We have funds that are allocated for evaluation. We will be putting out an RFP shortly for an evaluator to help any of the awardees to go through kind of our evaluation process to determine impacts and milestones for these funds. As I said, 25% goes to a statewide fund. And that was at the tune of, if you go back quickly, if you can, close to $23 million, leaving us $68 million to get into the community. We have and 68 million, then when you take off the boat, that comes to about $62 million that we are releasing. The process for determining the priorities and strategies are done with a community advisory board. And as I said, it's based on the data that communities have given us about what should be what are the priorities and strategies for our communities. We went through an 18-month process with our community advisory board. So for any community advisory board and allocation members here today, I can't scroll through. I want to thank everybody for being part of this process with us. They were very intentional about making sure that they were choosing the priorities and the strategies that were going to have the biggest impact in our communities. So you can see here the process and where these dollars are going to be allocated. We're here focused today on these housing dollars, but as you can see, we have dollars that will be allocated for mental health, economic mobility, and food, nutrition, and security. Those dollars will be released this spring through the summer into next fall. We are going to be doing this in stages. And as I said, this is a very quick turnaround for this amount of money. Our intent in doing it in this fashion is that we can get these dollars out as soon as possible. We know that there's a lot of need right now. We want to make sure that we do this and we do this within a time frame that works for everyone. If we can go to the next slide. So quickly, before we turn to the details of the LOI, why are we investing in housing? Why did our community advisory board choose housing as one of the priorities for these dollars? We know right now that housing instability contributes to poor health, and that it is in all shapes and sizes. And we want to make sure that this is an area that we can contribute and make an impact in. So as far as what our intent is around these dollars and what our community advisory board and our allocation committee is doing is these dollars need to be going upstream. We're very interested, especially as a hospital, to be working on treatment, harm reduction. But these dollars are not for that. These dollars are really to be thinking about how we can improve our overall neighborhood infrastructure and make an impact and change kind of the systems and structures in our community. So it is not just about what can I get for my specific project or program. It really is thinking globally about how can this project and program contribute to the infrastructure of my community to make a difference. And so when we talk about these dollars, we are really talking about how we can change, our systems and structures while funding these programs that are needed. So I'm hoping that makes sense. When thinking about your specific proposal, and I know the LOI, and Sylvia will go through the LOI, gives you a short amount of room to do this. Really focus on thinking about what are the gaps in your neighborhood? What are the gaps in my, area? What can we be contributing to make a difference in our neighborhood overall, or in our kind of, larger kind of environment? Thinking about, giving our community more of a voice in this. We talk about community land trusts a lot. What can we do to empower community members to make a difference? Also thinking about how you can leverage these dollars to do more, and thinking about kind of revolving, loans, and really being creative and thinking in new and different ways about what we're going to do to kind of solve our housing crisis. That just gives you a sense of kind of where we're headed with these dollars. We're really trying to think upstream about how we can change this landscape.
Leslie, I'm just going to add on this slide that highlighted here is the community engagement importance in how the voice and power and community governance is highly valued in these projects. Thank you. Thank you so much. So then let me go and go over some important elements on the letter of intent. Of course, what you heard from Leslie gives you a lot of explanation on, for example, eligibility, what the data we've collected and assessed with community partners at the table belong to these regions. And so that is why nonprofit organizations and the municipalities of Boston, any neighborhood, Chelsea, Revere, and Winthrop are the ones eligible to apply for the funding. And they, of course, need to respond respond to one or more of the strategies that were pulled out after analyzing and understanding the data and the needs in the community. Not eligible for this funding is mostly just internal healthcare related type of things, as Leslie was saying. No internal MGB affiliated community clinical or research department is eligible. Coordinating organizations from the Community Health Improvement Plan, these are all healthcare related activities and or projects outlining direct service transportation and reimbursable cost related to healthcare. Those are the things that are not eligible. In terms of funding, timeline and strategies, again, the community health impact funds are 62 million. The community advisory board assigned 18 for housing. For the different strategies, these 18 were then again divided for strategies A and B at 14 million over 3 years. As you will see in the box for strategies, A is the production, acquisition, and preservation of affordable housing, and B is any supportive activity. And that for that, we mean mostly advocacy for policy and or local zoning reform, local regulations. Those are the permanent changes that impact and benefit our communities in the long term. We said 14 million all at once so that you again can understand what's available and have the freedom to be creative. It does need to be rolled out over 3 years. So we are allowing you to say, okay, if that's available and can roll out in 3 years, this is how I will need it. For strategy C, which was a little bit more responding to more emergent situations, such as eviction, those are 4 million available and will be available 1 million a year for the next 4 years. And this will need a separate allocation process annually. And again, these are more the emergent need, and what the purpose of this is to keep people where they are in their homes and avoid any eviction issue for some families, and hopefully addressing, again, and upstream the causes, the challenges of why people are at risk of eviction. So again, looking very much upstream as we try to keep people in place. Again, because we wanted to allow creativity, there are no funding limits at this stage. Just let us know what you need, how you need it, how you will invest it. And once all of these letters of intent are analyzed and reviewed, we will understand, what is it that is going through your mind? What are the needs of our community? And it could be that if you're invited for a full proposal, then it might be necessary to put some limits at that point, but once understanding what the needs are and how you're thinking your projects. And so again, at this stage, no funding limits. Let us know what you're thinking, what you need. Make sure you request the amount you have the capacity to manage. Usually for organizations that do strategy A, for example, you can probably manage up to 100% of what your annual budget is. For eviction prevention, maybe smaller organizations think maybe 50%, to request 50% of what your annual budget usually is. Usually, again, make sure that you reflect well your capacity to manage the money. In terms of the letter of intent, at this point, no documentation, other documentation is required. Yes, you can propose for more than one project, but they will each need a separate letter of intent. Remember that for each letter of intent submitted, they compete with each other. There are written instructions on how to access the platform, Monkey Survey Apply. Right now, you can scan that QR code and it will take you directly to that beautiful document that our evaluation team put together, where step by step, it helps you access and navigate the platform. But we can have a little bit of time today at the end if you have any specific questions. You can also always email me. That's my address. Y yo también hablo español. If you feel more comfortable, si se siente más cómodo escribiendo en español. Evaluation criteria very much based on what everything we've set up until now. It should, we'll make sure that it's addressing one of the strategies, of course, that you're addressing the priorities of your neighborhoods and areas, that it impacts upstream. Are you impacting a policy? Are you changing the structure, the way things happen in your community? Are you affecting the environment in a significant way? Those again are permanent changes. It's sustainability is important too, so make sure to take that into account. Are you addressing equity? Are you benefiting and trying to address a group that has been for some reason at a disadvantage? And again, reflect the capacity to manage and make sure that the cost of the project actually aligns with the impact it will have. Again, community engagement is something highly valued. How is your community involved in your project? How are you talking to them? How are they talking to you? And when, how did they shape the project you're proposing? That's important. These are the dates and that are important right now. Of course, you saw how the letter of intent went out on November 1st. We're having this information forum today, and then the letter of intent is due on November 29th. We will get notified if you're invited to a full proposal between December 15th and the 20th. And at that time, we will say we will release the final request for proposals on January 5th. We've yet to determine, and that will, depend on the type of projects people are wanting to do. How will you apply for the full proposal? We will let you know. We will then at that point have an informational forum again, maybe office hours. We will see how it goes. So those dates are yet to be determined, but definitely we're hoping to end the process of reviewing the full proposals by February 9 and notify awards on hopefully March 8th. God willing, these are all aims, what we're aiming for. Okay. Now we have, it's a good time, 12:30. We are running on time. We have good amount of time for questions and answers, and this is where Mo comes in.
Thank you, Sylvia, and thank you, Leslie, for that really thorough explanation of the LOI and the LOI process. I want to just ask folks that we will ask you to raise your hand and do that electronically using the icons at the bottom of your screen. Under reaction, there's a button that you can press for raise hand, and I'll take those raised hands in the order that I see them. I will take questions from multiple organizations first before I take questions from the same organization as best as I can see. So I'm going to ask you in the name of the name that you have on the screen, if you can add your organization to your name, just so that we can manage that. And that we did have one question in the Q&A function that was there beforehand. And so I'll start with that question and then move there. If you have questions that you want to type instead of saying out loud, please use the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen instead of the chat. That way we can make sure that we are capturing them as questions. So the first question we're going to look asked, do you anticipate making one or two or multiple awards, and what is your estimate award per unit? Leslie, I'm going to turn
Yeah,
this one to
so
you.
so the question again, so if you read that again, what?
Sure. Do you anticipate making one or two or multiple awards? That's the first question.
Yes, the answer to that is multiple awards.
Awards. What is your estimate award per unit?
Yes, so I take a unit as project or awards, and I would say we do not know yet. It really depends on what people are asking for in their LOI to determine what the need may be. So I don't have a complete answer on that until we kind of know what we're getting in for. But it can be anywhere, if you're looking for a range, it can be anywhere from a small dollar amount to a very large, right? You could ask for $25,000 to do kind of working on systems and advocacy. Maybe that's all you need. Then that's what you would request. That is very different from asking to work on acquiring affordable housing in the neighborhood and be changing the landscape in your neighborhood. That may be $1 million, $2 million, $3 million request. So the range is going to be very different, and we will take that into consideration when we're looking at all the proposals.
Rich, I'm going to ask you to share your question, and just for everyone, when you share your question, it's one sentence. It begins with what, if, how, when, or where, and it ends with a question mark. Rich.
I think I'm on mute. I'm off mute, right? Okay.
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
The question was, if someone wants to put in two proposals, one for housing production and one for policy change, do the two proposals compete against each other? If that's clear, or do they each look at their own merits and say, okay, this is good for housing, this is good for policy? Go ahead.
Thank you, Rich.
I'm gonna take that. You want?
Go ahead.
So I would say in your proposal to reference, if you're going to put in two proposals, I would say you're going to reference that you're submitting another proposal. We'll see that obviously on the back end. Those two, they're two very different buckets. We have a kind of amount of money where we believe should be going into each of those buckets. So yes, they'll be competing with one another, but really only within that. Not if they're different. You see what I'm saying? You'll be just competing with others in your that bucket.
Great. I'm going to move us forward. There'll be some questions that I can answer very easily, so I'll run through those. So one question was asked, are community development corporations eligible to apply? The answer is yes. There's a question that says, are partnerships encouraged? And Leslie and Sylvia?
Yes.
Yes. Wonderful. Great. There's a question that says, are organizations allowed or encouraged to partner on a submission? Yes.
Yeah.
Allowed and encouraged. Yes. If you want to put in two proposals, one for housing, okay, that's already in. Thank you. Answered live, answered live, answered live. Wonderful. How does your view keeping naturally affordable housing sustainable through tenant organizing in regards to housing strategies? So what's your view on keeping affordable housing sustainable through tenant organizing?
I would say that falls in line in strategy B. And so it's,
Anything goes. Yeah,
yep, exactly.
sure.
Wonderful. There was a question that says, I thought I saw in one of the info documents that the limits were percentage of total operating budget. And just to make clear, what Sylvia said earlier was that if you're a small organization, if you're doing some of the policy work, you should do maybe up to 50% of your budget, of your operating budget. Think about that as the limit. If you're a large organization doing housing production, you can think about up to the 100% of your total operating budget. Sylvia, is that accurate?
That's correct. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to keep going here. Which strategy does MGH classify keeping naturally affordable housing sustainable through? Okay, we've done the
We did
tenant
that, yeah,
organizing.
yeah.
I think that's the B is the strategy you would go with there for the tenant organizing. If we want, okay, we've got that. Partnerships.
Statewide organizing.
And we repeated that. Statewide organizing eligible.
I would say yes, and Kate, you can chime in here. I think municipalities are able to apply as long as you're you're a nonprofit as a statewide agency.
Correct, municipalities are able to apply for the funding.
Right.
The question is, are statewide organizations eligible? Which is yes.
Yes.
The work, it happens in this space, great, and impacts this space. Can a proposal be partially awarded? For example, $3 million request gets $1 million award.
Yes.
Yes. Great. These are wonderful questions where you can just say yes. Just want to congratulate this group. This is great. Could you expand on eligible projects surrounding eviction prevention? For example, our organization facilitates subgranting to individuals who are interested in moving from affordable housing to ownership. Would that be eligible?
Yes. We'd love to see a little more system, something around the system being addressed, like, but in essence, yes.
Mm-hmm.
There's a question on, can organizations apply for these funds to advance policy work in the eviction one? And so
Yes.
for strategy C, yes. In
Yes,
fact,
Definitely.
Sylvia's point was encouraging that.
Yes.
Great. All right. Is strategy B limited to advocacy activities?
Well, we did say any supportive activity, you know, so it doesn't have to be advocacy, but some kind of activity that will lead to what is it? I can't think of any, but that wouldn't be advocacy, but that would somehow support just people either staying on their homes or accessing affordable housing.
Right. So kind of community land trusts, housing trust funds, advocacy, anything empowering communities to be making change in this environment.
Yeah.
Would be in addition to advocacy work. And to get back, Mo, to Jackie's question here, is it appropriate to apply for planning funds in relation to eviction? Right. And can someone come in during year 2? Yes. So these funds will have a separate LOI process each year. So if you miss it this time because you're not prepared, you can apply for them next year.
Right.
And if you get it this year.
Exactly. And even if you get it this year, you can apply next year. Exactly.
Can apply. Yeah.
The third part of that question, is it appropriate to apply for planning funds in relation to eviction prevention?
These dollars are not specifically for planning. They're really for kind of the impact that we're hoping to create.
All right. If you are part of a collaborative application and also apply on your own in the same bucket, is it less likely one application will be accepted because the same organization is on both? So I think what was mentioned before was that, when you put in multiple applications, you are competing against yourself also. So every project is competing against every project, but you're competing equally against every project. So if
That's
that
all,
makes
yeah.
sense. Yeah. And I'll encourage folks, as this is the LOI process, you want a good set of ideas with interesting projects. So I'd recommend you submit them.
Mhm.
Great. For affordable housing prevention projects, would needs such as energy efficient improvements and mechanical upgrades be eligible?
I
don't
would say
think-
no to that.
I don't think so. Right.
Okay, you just want to repeat that?
I'm sorry, I was just gonna say, I would say no to that. Those pieces would not be eligible.
And for folks at home, I'm going from the Q&A question button and into the meeting chat. There are some folks who can't access the Q&A button. I would just ask that you don't repeat the questions in both spaces so that we don't go back and forth. So for large affordable housing developments, how early in the development process is too early? Is pre-development eligible?
Yes. It's development.
And just for clarity, the acquisition of land is also a piece of this.
Exactly.
How will awards funds be allocated between communities?
That's a good question. I think that we're gonna determine what proposals come in. I think we're gonna be very intentional to make sure that it's based on what the needs are in the region and in the city itself. So I'm guessing this is this North Suffolk or Boston, how we're splitting the dollars? And it's really gonna be based on the projects that we get forth and knowing what the need is in those communities. So we don't have a set formula for that right now. But we're gonna be very intentional about making sure that it goes to both locations.
Are there data reporting requirements that will be tied to the award?
There's always data reporting requirements. But I have to say, we are also receive funds as well. So again, we're trying to make this as easy as possible. We will be hiring an outside evaluator who will work with you to collect the data, to make sure that any reporting that is needed will be submitted. So you will have access and support in this area. And we are not going to make this a huge, heavy lift to make this a barrier for you. It is not our intent.
If we put in for housing production and one for services, i.e. mental health resident services, is that eligible?
I missed that.
So if we put in for housing production
Mhm.
and one for services, mental health resident services, is that eligible?
Housing production, definitely.
Right.
I
So-
agree with Sylvia.
Exactly. So mental health resident services would not be part of this. We are going to be, as you know, there's going to be a new other LOIs that are going out for mental health, for economic mobility, stability, food, nutrition, and security. So know that there's more dollars coming that might support that particular part of your project.
For large affordable housing developments, how early in the development I know we've done that already. I think I'm hearing that the LOI is not a neighborhood strategy, but rather a project-based effort. Otherwise, one could seek dollars for one project and dollars for another.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yep.
The mental health LOI, the mental health behavior LOIs are due at the same time. Sally, there are two different awards processes going on. There's one that's going on in the southwest neighborhoods of Boston that are tied to Faulkner. That's the one that's going on right now. What Leslie is mentioning is a broader same geography as this process that will be happening in 2024. Do you want to say anything else on that, Leslie or Sylvia?
But if she's referring to the one that went out at the same time as this one, that's the Faulkner one. Yes, we're following the same timeline.
Right. But know that the Faulkner dollars are only for 4 specific neighborhoods: West Roxbury, Rosendale,
Hyde Park,
and Jamaica Plain.
Jamaica.
So it is for work in those 4 areas. Tracy Sylvan's on here with us. She's leading that process. So another mention is when you're going in to apply for dollars, make sure you're in the right program because they're right beside each other. So make sure you read, is it say Faulkner? Does it say MGH housing? So they're 2 separate programs to request funds.
Question is there if a nonprofit is the lead applicant, for example, a CDC, can they partner with a for-profit organization like a management company?
So
Yeah.
typically,
Oh,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
No, Leslie, you're correct.
No, go, you can expand if you want.
I was just gonna say, typically, the Department of Public Health likes to see nonprofits, but as long as the applicant is a nonprofit, then the for-profit's gonna do some of the work with them, then you just want to explain that relationship.
Right. Can you say more about what kinds of housing preservation work are eligible? This particular person is thinking about renovations to existing SRO units.
Mhm.
Can that person tell us what are SRO units? Just to make sure we are understanding the same thing.
Single room occupancy, right?
Right.
Okay.
Can I answer that in an intelligent way? Is the question.
We could also come back to you. I just want to preserve for folks that we are taking these questions, answering them as best as we can here,
Okay.
but we'll also follow up with, in the frequently asked questions, any additional information of something we thought of that wasn't completely clear here or that we answered and we want to add to that answer. We'll be doing it in the frequently asked questions. So,
Right.
and likewise, if for some reason you get off the call today and you had some more questions, please send us those questions and we will answer them and share them with everyone.
So Mo, can you read that question again? Just
Sure.
so
Can you say more about what kinds of housing preservation work are eligible?
So I think I would say anything that is helping to keep residents in their neighborhood and prevent them from being displaced, especially trying to reduce, kind of the discrimination that we're seeing in communities, the racism that they're seeing in communities. So I think SROs would be something that we would consider.
Can you elaborate on the creation of resources for residents at risk of displacement? Are there resources that can't be included, such as rental or legal assistance?
I would say those can be included.
Yeah, Kate, you have any?
I agree with that. I would say those can be included.
Right.
You. Answered. Great. Data collection for policy change needs to be creative and reflective that the policy change at the city or state level can take many years, so the number of bills passed may not reflect the effort. While things like the number of people or communities involved, the emails, blah, blah, made. Testimony. I was looking for the questions. Okay, we'll skip that one. Thank you. Can you repeat how the application and award cycles work? And would we apply for a multi-year award now?
Yes.
So-
Just line it up in the timeline and in the section for timeline and funding. That's exactly what we're looking for. How would you use it?
So in strategies A and B, it's over the 3 years, so you can, how you would use it across those 3 years. In strategy C, in the eviction, it's an LOI every year for the next 4 years. How you use the awarded in the first year over whatever time, that's up to you, and you should, write how you would want to use those dollars. So if you applied for $150,000, but you were going to spend it over 3 years, it could be awarded in year one, and you could spend it over 3 years.
Exactly. And for the, and don't feel like you need to say, if you need let's just say $1 million for a project, $500,000 for this project to get it off the ground, it doesn't have to be spread over the course of 3 years. You just need it in year one, and that's what you're applying for, and that's perfectly fine.
How important is leverage funding in the evaluation of the proposals? It's not listed as an eval criteria specifically. How important is leveraged funding in the evaluation of the proposals?
That means like, have they leveraged other types of funding for like a big project?
I think it goes to your capacity, Sylvia, I don't want to jump in, of being able to make sure that that project's gonna be successful and you're gonna be able to complete it. So I'm guessing it will be leveraged highly depending on what the project is, right?
What the plan is for
Exactly.
to complete the funding.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. If it's a big project and you're asking for all of the dollars for the project just based on us, there might be some red flags that go on to say, well, how are you going to sustain this? What's this going to be about? Where you're only kind of funder, that might be hard.
So, can one project or LOI contain elements of more than one strategy, or would spanning strategies be considered or require separate projects / letters of intent? I want to make sure that if you're doing A and B, there's an answer. If you're including C with one of those other ones, there's an answer. So Leslie and Sylvia, can a project have strategies A and B together?
Yes.
Yes, they can.
And if a project is going to do strategy C and someone is proposing strategy C and either A or B, should they do that as two separate LOIs?
So if they're looking for funding for strategy C for eviction, it should be a separate LOI.
Right.
But make reference that you put in other applications in strategy A and B.
The combinations just need to make sense. I find it hard combining in a program with eviction and that's also producing and acquiring, the strategy A. That would sound like it's actually two separate projects.
Right. Mo, there's one here about migrant housing focused
Yep.
project.
Yes.
Will the slides be made available with all those who registered?
Yes,
Yes.
they will.
And then are migrant housing focused projects eligible?
We've talked about this. I think that these are not the intent of these dollars. I would see that as more of an emerging need right now. So I would say no right now. I know that's hard in the place that we are, but those were not the intent of these dollars. This is really to change the landscape and thinking about the systems that we're living in right now to make affordable housing more readily available.
We have exhausted the questions in the Q&A and in the chat. I just want to see if there are any other questions, if someone wants to raise their hand or quickly put it in either of those spaces. And know that you will be able to follow on with questions to Sylvia. You can email them there, and that any additional information will be posted in the frequently asked questions. So one more call for questions.
All of the questions that came through for when you registered, we will put those on the frequently asked questions document with answers. And we're going to be updating that on a weekly basis, so that will go out. We have answers to all of those questions for you. And we will put that up on our website.
And we've pretty much answered them here, Leslie. I was just reviewing them, yeah.
And recorded, but it can also be available, so you'll be able to access this with the frequently asked questions to get this recording. I know I like to go back through and rehear the answers to things just to make sure that I got it right. So great question. I want to give Quinn some time to go over how to get into the portal. I know I'm one of those folks who is going to take a moment to say, hey, how do I do this? So I'm really glad that Quinn and
Kelly are here.
and Kelly are here to do that. So let's give Quinn the
Yep.
There you
Give her the platform.
Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen. If folks are able to see this. I just want to put it out there. Have anyone has had any trouble logging in and registering for the LOI to do the LOI application through SurveyMonkey? It's pretty straightforward. Once you get here to the landing page, I just want to show quickly what it looks like. If you haven't registered yet, just feel free to come here. And you just enter your information as you would. We have screenshots that really walk you through all these steps, and I'm sure everyone has already had a chance to. So you could just register here. Once you've registered and verified your email, you can go in and log in, of course. And then from here, you have the landing page. And then the two programs that Leslie had mentioned earlier, making sure that you're going into the right program. If you're interested in the Faulkner's program for mental health or for Mass General Health for housing, you would go here. And so from here, you could see that you're here for MGH housing. And if you continue on to the LOI, you would go in here and log in. So I can just log in really quickly.
Quinn, I just want to share with the group, there's only been one single case that when they input their email address, when they are creating the account and you input your email address and they sent you a verification to your email, it has been blocked by the person's organization. And we had to go back and forth to understand why she wasn't getting that confirmation email. So just, again, some firewalls are very strict. So make sure that if you're not getting it, that you're looking into that. But that has only been one case.
Thank you, Sylvia. Yes, just make sure that I can see the firewall and make sure it's on sort of whitelisted, so it's back appearing in your inbox. And then here, if you've already initiated an application, you would see it here. But if not, it would say no applications. You would click here to view programs, and it will bring you back to this sort of second landing page once you want to go through each one of these programs. And then it just literally walks you through, and you can continue to apply. Has all the relevant information on when it's open and when it'll end. And then from there, you can just proceed by clicking on letter of intent. And then there's all the required fields that you see there for related to your organization. It's not gonna let me proceed until I fill out everything, but everything is just really, it's only a checkbox or a text box, and it has the word count guidelines there for you. And you can save and continue editing at any point. And then when you're ready to submit, the last page will have a little box that you can also click to submit. And then once you do, you should definitely get a confirmation email as well. So that's really it. Not too complicated, we hope.
We tried to make this as easy as possible for people to apply. And as Sylvia said, we will be contacting people in December. And then we do not know the process for kind of for the next step of this, whether this will be RFPs or presentations, invites back. So that's to be determined based on our allocation committee. How do we add a separate LOI for a different strategy? You have to go back in, right?
Yep, you'll have to go back in and apply. I think what would have to be under, I believe, Kelly, would correct me, it would have to be under another email, right? Or does it? We might have to go back and confirm.
We'll have to go back and confirm. I think we have to look at how we set up the back end in terms of email applicants, but I believe you can. We'll definitely confirm.
We'll definitely confirm. Yeah.
Yep.
And that
Hopefully
was
we have to do
Miriam.
that.
Okay, definitely.
Yep.
Thank you for the question.
So we are right at time.
We're right on time. We're at the top of the hour. Thank you very much, everyone.
Yes, I hope this was helpful for everyone. Again, we're all learning as we go along. These are a lot of dollars. We want to make the biggest impact as we can. And we're here as resource for all of you.
Yeah, and good luck with the application process. Looking forward to seeing all of your creative ideas. Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
all. Thanks for being here.
Have a nice rest of your day.